Well, hello. It's Friday afternoon, 6:01, and it's time for Courtside with Lawman and Carmen B. Now, as you can see, Lawman is here before you because Carmen B is going to come and join us by phone, hopefully in a few minutes. But I'm here and we're ready to talk about anything involving criminal law, the criminal justice system, and anything else that your heart desires, so to speak. You can call in possibly and talk to me, but it'll probably have to be, I think that's our special guest right there. Hello, who is it?
Hello, this is Carmen B.
Hey, Carmen B. She's on the line with me now. So I'm live right now, and Carmen is on the line. And I was just about to say that we're going to talk about stuff dealing with criminal law, criminal procedure, and laws in general. And that you can probably it'd be best to just chat in and your questions and stuff like that today, and know that when we do answer questions, that we do not create an attorney-client relationship. So,
Correct.
huh?
I said that is correct.
Yes, it is. Now, I think tonight it's me and criminal law, but I think that maybe what we're going to do is just handle a couple of little issues and stuff in criminal law. I know one thing I want to talk about is SB 2, a Senate bill that they're trying to push through, which treats police officers like any other professionals in that if you screw up, then a license that is given to you to do your work may be taken so that you don't get an opportunity to then go to work somewhere else right away. It would be the same way if it's lawyers or doctors or any professionals had a license and they took an action against that license. So it's I can tell you about the summary of the bill and what it's all about. It's written actually, or at least one of the individuals and part of the organizations that promoting it is a guy I used to debate in San Francisco State University when I was in college. He was at University of Nevada, Reno. And so our teams would hit all the time. But he was a public defender in San Diego for quite a while. And now he works for Cal Matters, which is a policing watchdog type organization. And they're pushing this bill to get through in order to stop police officers from just picking up and going to the next job after they've been fired or done something wrong at another job. Now, tonight, I think we got to look at where we're at here also on this Texas law and why it's important for people to respond to it. I think what has happened is we've had a lawsuit filed already challenging it. And that's the way that this is actually going to go. A lot of people in my class, my criminal law class, was asking, well, how do you challenge it? Do you actually have to file a lawsuit and then go all the way up to the Supreme Court for it to be heard? And it is true that you have to challenge the lawsuit unless the Supreme Court or some other organization gets involved right away. But that can be a long journey. That can be a hard journey and be an expensive journey. So to challenge it, you're going to see organizations like Planned Parenthood and certain groups and stuff, ACLU may get involved in things like that, who may pool their resources in order to file the lawsuits necessary. Carm, did you have anything special subject matter you want to deal with tonight?
I did not exactly, but there were a few of our viewers who sent in a variety of videos related to officer misconduct. One in particular was an incident where they were arresting a young man, and the officer, the young man was clothed, but the officer basically simulated sodomy by, pushing a flashlight in his near his buttocks, basically on his buttocks, but he had his pants up. But again, it just shows that there are certain officers out there who don't feel like they need to even treat certain arrestees as human. Because what in all of your training would make you think that that was acceptable behavior? If I did that to someone, I would be arrested for assault, possibly attempted sodomy, attempted rape, not rape because I guess it was a young man, but attempted sodomy, sexual battery, and this officer should face those same sorts of charges. There shouldn't be one set of standards that is applied to all other citizens, but does not apply to them because they wear the badge.
Right. And one other, what we're seeing is that the cameras are catching them all over the United States. Those who resist body cams, like maybe the Sacramento Sheriff's Department, are resisting them for a reason. And I think that they're starting to be disingenuous about their reasoning when they know when they see body cams are basically catching people, instead of saying, well, body cams will make sure we do things right. It's more like body cams are going to catch us doing things wrong. And that's the ass backwards way to look at it in a lot of ways. So yes, we can talk about several incidents of those that I've actually have collected, because I collect them every week. There was anything else, Carm? Of that, on that guy, on that incident.
I believe that officer has been either fired or placed on leave. I don't know how much of an investigation is required to determine that his actions were not only wrong, but criminal. Now, Lawman, if I'm accused of a crime, if someone says Carmen did X, Y, and Z to me, and X, Y, and Z, if I really did it, amounts to a crime, I'm going to be immediately arrested when they contact me.
Correct.
Why is it that when officers engage not just in misconduct, but in criminal conduct, there's an investigation that lasts 6 months, a year, 18 months, when our clients don't get the benefit of those type of investigations? They don't get to stay out while we have to overturn every rock to make sure that this evidence is found.
Right.
All we need is the allegation, and when it's our clients, all we need is someone making the allegation and they're getting arrested.
True.
That same thing should apply to officers.
Right.
One, because you've taken an oath and we expect better from you if you are holding to the truth of your oath. And if you are not, we need to get you out of that position as soon as possible.
Correct. And you're right. I guess the only difference would be that they're acting under the color of authority. We have to assume and presume they're doing their job until we can presume or assume that they're not. And it goes along with the SB2, actually, which is no more immunity really for them either. To where they can do something that would be criminal on one hand, but then never be punished for it, and never even and if an investigation does occur, that it drags on, and then there's no findings because they find that the officer was acting because of his safety or something like that.
Well, I don't know. What about your safety? How you're protecting your safety? Because I believe the young man was handcuffed. So I don't know how you're protecting your safety by simulating sodomy on a handcuffed child. Because that's the other thing. My understanding is he was a juvenile, a child. And this officer, having done that, is just a very disturbed criminal himself.
Yeah. And that brings up a big picture, Carm, of what are we going to do about these things? We continue to film them. People bring lawsuits, right? Crump is out there suing everybody. But yet, why won't policies change? Why?
It is very difficult when things have gone a certain way for a long period of time unchecked. There is resistance to change. But change must come in this circumstance. They've gotten along with mistreating a certain set of citizens for so long that they believe they have a right to do it.
Yeah.
And what we have to do is show them they don't have that right, and we won't stand for it anymore.
It's almost like
also
if, yeah.
Get more of us in these positions. Now, just being of the same race or color does not mean that you will necessarily act in a professional manner. So there needs to be more psychological testing of these officers. There also needs to be follow-up. Like one psychological test when you first hire someone and then never checking on them again. Yeah. That's not sufficient.
Well, especially when from the time of that one test till, maybe 2 or 3 years later, they're involved in all of these stops and these incidents where they're getting reinforced that there is an enemy out there and that you have to capture the enemy at all costs, And
do whatever you want to this supposed enemy.
Torture.
But there is no enemy. It's a straw man. The people that officers arrest are citizens with the same rights that the officer has. If the officer believes that this conduct that he is engaging in is correct conduct, then it should also happen to him.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
Right.
Because the officer knows when he's doing it that it's wrong. He knows that at no point in time during any training did they teach him that that was an acceptable method.
Right. And is it our love for first responders, our heroes and things like that, like who's going to save you so you can give them a little slack? Do you think it's partly some of that stuff too?
I think that for people who are supporting the officers,
yeah.
Yes. I believe that they have been fed this line that if you don't support the officers, there will be chaos.
Yep.
That is not true. We can live in a civilized society with law enforcement that acts in a civilized manner. You can arrest someone in a civilized manner without abusing them. That is the purpose of your training that teaches you special techniques to get compliant.
Right. And I find it funny that, we can criticize other countries about their military and law enforcement, so to speak. And yet we see the faults in ours too. And we got to let it go, I guess, because as long as somebody else's is worse than us, then it makes us look good. So I think it's almost like we have to, like we've talked about before, it's a revamping of the entire system, of the way we do it, And we're not saying, look, there's always those who holler, I can hear them now. Well, there's good officers, and most of them are good, and you just don't know what it's like to be out there on the front lines and all that kind of stuff.
You're not a good officer if you are standing by and watching other officers mistreat and commit straight-out crimes on other human beings.
However, what about the fact that I'm standing here watching them, but I got to buy into the fact that I better do what my brothers do, or else I won't be a brother anymore. I will not be trusted by them,
If you are a person of conscience and credibility, why would you even want to be a part of an organization that treats other human beings in that fashion? And
you should.
If your attempt to report the misconduct results in you losing that position, then you bring that to the media. Hey, I'm one of the good cops, and I reported the activities of these bad cops, and I was fired.
But we've seen, even from the movie Serpico a long time ago, in the 70s, so to speak.
I remember Serpico.
Yeah. Part of the sad part of the movie was this guy tried to do the right thing. He ratted on people, and,
You can't ever stop trying to do the right thing because it doesn't work. You have to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, we could say, hey, X, Y, and Z existed for this amount of time. We're never going to change it, so we're not even going to try. Right. We're not saying that. We have to try to change this system, this mindset, this belief that you can treat other citizens of your country. And I don't want to limit it to just citizens, because I don't want people to believe that it is okay to mistreat immigrants. Right. It is not. It is not okay to mistreat and engage in criminal activity against another human being that you are arresting. Right. And we need to get that into the culture of policing.
Yeah. And what a job it would be for us to lift that up, because we'll hear the voices that, well, what else can we do? They're doing the best they can. And how do you stop a monster but be a monster, And so it gets in a circular argument, it seems like, that, well, you don't have to be a monster to stop a monster, but yes, you do. You got to be a monster to stop a monster. So I mean, my ideas of changing, okay, I keep saying you got to start at the beginning. Okay. And the beginning is really the people who are on the force, and who are you bringing on? Are you bringing on individuals who are willing to be trained to practically be killers in a way, but yet I'm supposed to be compassionate about the way I do my job? So it's a dichotomy. I mean, I think there's a left and a right. I don't know if you can be both, to tell you the truth. You can't be.
They're not supposed to be killers. That is not their role. Now, if they have to kill in true self-defense, that is a different story. But if you are just because of this false, made-up narrative of fear, as what is that say basic public enemy, fear of a black planet?
Right.
So every time you see dark skin, it leads you to be unreasonably fearful.
True.
Because they are not military. There's a different training that you get when you are in the military, and you may face an enemy where you have to actually take the life of someone who is on the opposing side.
Right. And maybe even innocent civilians. So
law enforcement is not that. But law enforcement's job is to, one, they say, to protect and serve the community. That includes the community of people that you are arresting.
But
the reason that they teach, like I said, specific tactics in terms of how to detain someone, how to get pain compliance, which can be done without breaking out their teeth with a flashlight.
Right.
They're not trained to be killers. They're trained to act in self-defense, and defense of others if someone is posing a true threat. And that is not going to be every person that they arrest. And in fact, that is a smaller percentage of the people that they arrest who are actually posing a threat. Sometimes the only threat that the person is posing is to themselves, because they're having a mental health episode and they're walking on the freeway when they shouldn't be, and they might get ran over by a car. That doesn't give the cops the right to then show up there and shoot them.
Well, all right. Well, I bring you this. You know that several individuals who become police officers get out of the Army, the military, after 3-4 years. So, like I said before, your pool are these individuals who get fresh out of the military and they volunteer out, So they've served their time in the military and now they want to take on the job of policing somewhere. So their tactics and their training is basically coming from military training. It just gets ramped up a little bit for the urban warfare that they have to come, So
and that's part of the problem is defining your job as engaging in urban warfare. That is not what it is. You are not judge and jury. Your job is, if someone has been accused of doing something that is potentially a crime for the element, you arrest that person, and then their charges are brought. Make a decision based on the evidence about whether or not they committed the crime. And I will say this: there are people who go from the military to jobs in every single sector, and you don't have them just randomly believing because they have military training that, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to kill my subordinate because they're not going along with what was on the agenda for the job today. So I'm not going to allow them to use military service as a excuse for that kind of behavior. Because one thing that you are taught in the military is that you are not to engage people who are not enemy combatants. Now, in the military, is it true that, yes, sometimes there is going to be some accidental, or should only be accidental collateral damage? Yes, that will happen, where you were shooting at a combatant, but, a civilian ran out of fear and they got shot. That's an accident.
Yes.
That's not on purpose. What these officers are doing is on purpose.
Well, I mean, and it appears to be on purpose simply because we get to watch, what happens. But
you tell me how it's not on purpose to put a flashlight in a kid's near a kid's buttocks and simulate sodomy on that child. How is that not on purpose?
It's probably.
I can assure you, having had military training, I can assure you that is not a technique used, taught by the military.
No, it's a mocking technique. It's I'll show you technique.
That's some sick, sadist shit.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
I don't like to curse on air.
I was going to say, what a first, or maybe a second. But look, but Carm, haven't we all accepted it at this point? I mean, isn't.
I don't think, I don't know. Let me say this. There probably are some citizens who are just like, that's the way it's going to be, and we're never going to change it. And I'm sure at some point people said that about slavery.
Yeah.
We have to stop things that we know are wrong, and this is one of those.
Right. I mean, it becomes a moral issue, actually, at some point, right? How do you police your society, and...
Now, let me read from a part of SB 2, the bill that you were talking about, peace officer certification.
Yeah.
This bill, and this is from the I believe the language of the bill. This bill would prohibit a person who has been convicted of a felony, as specified, from regaining eligibility for peace officer employment based upon any later order of the court setting aside, vacating, withdrawing, expunging, or otherwise dismissing or reversing the conviction unless the court finds the person to be factually innocent. So what this is saying is, if they're convicted of a felony, even if they later come in and get what we know as Penal Code 1203.4 dismissal, they still would not be able to be employed as a peace officer. Right. It goes further. The bill would disqualify a person from being employed as a peace officer if that person has been convicted of or adjudicated in an administrative, military, or a civil judicial process as having committed certain specific crimes against public justice, including the falsification of records, bribery, and perjury.
Right.
It would also disqualify any person who has been certified as a peace officer and has surrendered that certification or had that certification revoked or certification has been previously denied. It would also disqualify them, any person who was previously employed in law enforcement in any state whose name is listed in a national decertification index. or another database established by the federal government. Also, those who engage in serious misconduct that resulted in their decertification.
Right.
And the bill would require that the law enforcement agency could only employ peace officers who have a current valid certification or who are pending certification. Now, we have those kinds of licensing laws for all sorts of other positions.
Right.
Why shouldn't this become the law so that officers are treated the same way as nurses' aides, as nurses, as doctors, as attorneys?
Right. And that's why it's going to be important to help pass this law, just like it's going to be important to vote before the 14th rise, just like it's going to be important to vote in any state that's trying to produce bills that will diminish our voting rights or our right to an abortion. The vote.
I would just remind you, because normally I'm there and I can look at the chat. I can't see the chat here, so I don't know if there's any comments that you need to respond to. So I would just remind you to look at that every so often to see if there's something to respond to.
I'm checking it out. Nothing's there yet.
No problem.
But if it pops up, then we're talking about it, Yeah. But this SB2, I look at it as it's another way, it is a way of stopping the bad apples from creating more poisonous trees and things like that, Yeah. That's what it does, really, is just stop the bad apples from going to the left and to the right and starting another tree. So, that's why it's necessary. It really is. Because lawyers, like you say, lawyers, doctors, other professionals, 200 other professionals, they'll tell you, are treated that way. So, look at a nurse. If a nurse plays with drugs or takes drugs or, anything like that, they're going to...
She lies in medical records.
There's
all sorts of things that someone can lose their license for.
Yes. Now, I'm not going to change the subject, but I want to shift it and focus it on what's happening in Aurora, Colorado, with Mr. McLean. I don't know if we talked about that. How
we have not.
Yeah, how they're now bringing charges against the officers as well as the paramedics who came out and gave him the dosage of medicine that contributed to his death. However, Aurora Police Department issued a statement saying, "Look, no, he died of I forget what did they say? Oh, he did not die at the officer's hands. It was because of his elevated blood count or something like that."
How did his heart rate? Let's assume for a second that's true. How did his heart rate get elevated? Did it get elevated by him going to the grocery store and purchasing his drink and walking back home?
Of course not.
Done nothing. No, it got elevated because of their contact, of their detaining unlawfully of him. There was no report of a crime. Someone calling in and saying someone looks suspicious is not enough to stop them.
Right.
Because the person didn't say, someone looks suspicious, a burglary just happened, and I see this person carrying a TV.
Right.
That would be enough to stop them, right?
Well, yes, and I can give you a great analogy of that, okay? When it comes to anonymous callers for crimes, okay, here in California. But first, let me just say, realize McLean came up after George Floyd, and it had happened 2 years prior, okay? So notice how nothing had occurred. Now, here's a question regarding, a comment possibly from Sheepdog. If a police hits him with a flashlight in the head and it breaks, can he be charged with breaking police property? Well, look.
Well, the officer may lie about how the flashlight was broken. He may say the suspect snatched my flashlight from me and smashed it on the ground.
Right. But
and then next thing you know, now this person is charged with some kind of property destruction.
Now, I wouldn't be worried about the property thing. Okay. I'm sure they're not going to come at you for the flashlight. But the bigger problem is going to be what they come at you for in the scuffle. Okay. I mean, are you alive? Are you dead? How hurt are you? What are the consequences of this? And are you arrested for something? So, something's going to come out of it. And hopefully it's just not a little vandalism thing. But I'll tell you this, if people are in the backseat of police cars and you kick the glass, kick the doors and things like that, and they break or detach or anything like that, then yes, it would be felony vandalism on a police officer's car. But shifting to McLean, okay? Because I want to tell you something that's eerie in this. When that first came out, that had happened to that boy, and it was coming out that the boy is trying to explain how different he is and he's not a threat and things like that. There was a picture on the internet that they had grabbed of the 3 officers. I believe that were the first ones there. And I looked at the picture and to me, I mean, I saw such hatred. And the picture was not at the scene or anything like that. It was a picture they took later and put up on Facebook. Is
this the one that they took where they went to a memorial for him?
I can't say that. I just saw the 3 officers, and one of them looked like they were holding somebody in a chokehold, and the other 2 were just standing there like very coy, like ha ha ha, And
I
so
think they actually did that photograph at a memorial for him. We do have one comment from one of our viewers, Brookstone. Police training is apparently to get home alive. They unload their weapons into the center of mass. That's a home defense technique that does not belong in law enforcement.
Right. I mean, kill first, ask questions later. Yeah. And that's true. I mean, see, that's what I mean is by the training of killers, you see, is that, they're trained to, if somebody bitches at you, if somebody appears to throw something at you, spit at you, kick at you.
They are not trained that way. I have to disagree with you. They are not. Well, let me rephrase this because I can't say what informally supervisors are saying to them, but their former peace officer training does not teach them that that they can just unload their weapon into someone because someone did something that was even a minor assault. So no one is extremely disrespectful to spit on anyone, right? No one wants to be spit on. But if someone spit on me, I would not be justified in then killing that person because the force used to defend against that assault is not reasonable.
But Carm, go back and listen to what we're saying. I said training killers in that I'm not saying that's the official policy. I'm not saying that's what they trained them to do. I'm saying that's what you learn to do. Don't you remember the movie Training Day?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why I said that I know that formally they are not being trained that. And that's why I added the fact that informally I can't say what supervisors are saying to them about what behavior is appropriate in certain circumstances.
Right. But I'm not talking formally. I'm saying when you're out there on the streets, what you are taught by others is what to do. Okay. So all the formal stuff goes out the window. All right. The formal stuff may say, be courteous.
It shouldn't.
Yeah, but
that is what it's supposed to kick in. That's why it's supposed to be repetitive. And I think one of the problems that we have is law enforcement officers don't get enough training with their guns. And someone may say, well, wait, as much as they kill people, surely they do. But they don't. And so they're not comfortable with, and they're also not comfortable apparently with other control holes that are taught to them. Because if they were, they would go through stages before they would ever even get to the use of deadly force. And they would only use deadly force if deadly force was threatened.
Now you've just brought up AB 392, okay, and a new way of training. But here's our problem. We are here now. This is happening now. How many years of this retraining we're going to have to go through to make them act properly. And how do you make anybody?
There's no silver bullet where we can make everyone do. And by everyone, I mean these officers, people who are currently officers.
Right.
Just immediately all behave as they should.
We're not.
Standards to code.
That's why I said we have to start all over.
It is going to be a slow process.
Start all over.
That doesn't mean that we don't do the process. So when you say start all over,
that's right.
Some people will take that to mean that you're like fire and get rid of every single cop and start over with brand new cops. We know that that's not going to happen.
Well, that may not be realistic. However, it can be a process of assessing those who do wrong, getting rid of them faster, bringing those in under a different umbrella. So the turnover is going to happen, but it just has to happen now. Now, I'll tell you that about the breaking of the flashlight, right? A sheepdog said that it happened in Michigan, actually, and the guy's still alive, okay? And then...
He didn't, because the kid, my understanding is, like I said, the kid, he didn't actually sodomize him. He had his clothing on, but that's still a very sexually violent way to do something to someone, clothes on or not.
Sure.
Someone wants someone taking an object and putting it there. It's disgusting.
Well, of course it is, Carm. I mean, but here we sit, you know, and I'm gonna bust in because we're on the training thing in a way, okay? And where Marianne has said at this point there should be new training, and that's what I'm talking about, and that there should be accountability and don't get paid leave. You see, when things do go wrong. And that is just two things in a series of things that can actually be implemented that can actually be put in place. And
certainly if you hit people in their pockets, it tends to change their behavior.
Right.
Now, you would think, considering the amount of taxpayer money that has been utilized to pay out civil suits for this misconduct, you would expect that taxpayers should support this type of reform so that tax dollars can be spent on more important services for the public.
But here's the thing.
Paying for the criminal activity of officers.
But here's what we know about that. Insurance company game, correct? If I've got 15 million, I'm going to sit it in the bank and let it earn interest because I know that off the interest that I probably can pay off lawsuits and things like that. So as a taxpayer, I'll give you your 15 million and you do with it what you will. Now, if that means that you're paying off lawsuits, you're paying off lawsuits. If it means you're buying new military equipment, you're buying new military equipment. So as a taxpayer, I would be supportive of probably both of those things. So it's hard to say the taxpayers got to stop them.
I'm clear with what you're saying. You would be supportive of what?
Oh, of paying my taxes as long as you pay off these lawsuits. That's right. Pay them off. Pay them the money.
As one taxpayer, I'm saying, yes, people should be paid when they are wrong, but it should come for a substantial portion of it, because I know you can't get it all from the officer's pocket because he's not making that kind of money.
Can you get any of it?
A portion should come from the officer so he can feel that pain, because that kind of financial pain also changes behavior.
But here's the problem. Immunity and unions.
Well, that's why we're saying those.
It's never going to work, right? And that's why the taxpayers.
We're not saying it never will work. We can't be saying it'll never work because we're advocating for the change.
But the taxpayers are not going to change or be mad about their dollars being spent.
Taxpayers, so maybe all taxpayers won't, but those of us who are should speak up.
Oh, of course. I mean, but I always got to look at things. I'm trying to understand things in a big picture way. You know, I'm always trying to look at it as, you know, people can disagree with me personally and all that, but what is the big picture, you know? And to me, on policing, the big picture is overhaul. That's the word, overhaul it, because it's not working to the extent that maybe I want it to work now. But there are plenty in millions who will say it's working for me. And that's where our problem is that America's not going to see eye to eye on this. We're going to have this great divide and stuff on this subject matter. But yet we have to have one goal, one way of moving and stuff. That's what I fear about doing things right in America, is because you got to have so many people buy in on it for it to work that it won't work, because no one will buy in on it. It's like a Senate, right? It's like the Senate in the House when there's a bill. They know from the jump, well, it won't pass because you don't have the votes. They haven't asked everybody, but they know it won't pass because you don't have the votes. How do they know? Because they know how people are going to feel and how they're going to move.
They've already taken a poll. We
right.
know how things work in politics.
Yeah, but believe me, if taxpayers wanted to revolt on this, they would have done it. That would have happened. But I really believe the majority of us will pay our taxes and not really think about how, well, I don't want the police to do this with my tax money. So it becomes an issue that's easier to bury in that respect, I really think it comes down to like you were saying, the psychological testing of individuals who even get in the field. Because
the unions are going to be resistant to that. If that's your claim, not only are the unions going to be resistant to that, they're also going to be resistant and opposed to SB 2. We can't not try because other people are opposed to it. Because there were people who were opposed to what is the policy that let DACA? There were people that were opposed to DACA, but DACA got passed. And so what it is letting also your legislators know what is a priority to you. Other groups in America get policy for their groups, including groups who are not citizens. But we, American descendants of slaves, don't seem to get policy.
Well,
what we get is rhetoric. What we need to start demanding is policy.
Right. Now, you said unions, right? Well, unions will oppose, right?
The police officers' unions definitely will.
That's right. Now, let's just take the NFL or other places where there are unions, okay? One thing that happened in the NFL was CTE was discovered. They found out that, oh my goodness, people are dying because of the head injuries that you are suffering with. And it blew up. It became a big issue. And the unions caved and said, yeah, because their job was to speak for the players, right? And to protect the players in the future. So it's okay to change the rules of the game. It's okay to require this concussion protocol and things like that in order to try to help that whole problem that's coming up. Because the other side of the money could have said, hey, this is football. We pay to watch you crash into each other, and that's an assumption of the risk. And so if you want to do it, you do it. We paid you millions to do it. So do it. But unions had to cave on that and say, but it's our job to protect. Now, until we get unions to see that they should be protecting police officers somehow, I don't know.
In their minds, they are protecting in what they're currently doing.
Well, status quo. That's right. We're going to protect you when you shoot somebody and hurt somebody. We're going to be on your side, maybe, until you get convicted. So, I just see, there's this, we have this, there's a problem, and we can diagnose it all we want, but there's no way we're finding a cure until we really break down the problem and say, we got to start pouring in good water before, pour in the good water after bad water is poured out, or else it's just going to keep mixing in as bad water. And so, there's no true answer. We can debate and call the shots all we want, which way or the other. But I just feel that, a start would be great. And a start is at least on the people who are coming in. you know, not soldiers, not, you know, but it's almost impossible.
I would not want to preclude soldiers from being law enforcement officers, because that would be saying that we expect that all soldiers are going to behave in these ways that involve misconduct. And that just is simply not true. Having once been a soldier myself, having a son who is currently a soldier, my dad having been a soldier. So I would not blanketly preclude military veterans from becoming officers.
Then the psychological.
Testing can weed out those people who this job is not a fit for you.
Right. And that's hard, though. That's hard, because what you do in your own home and stuff and what you do out in the public is totally different. Now, let's shift, Carm. Let's shift. How about this? Let's shift to elections now, okay? And what people stand for. We've got an election coming up. Everybody should mail in their ballots, drop them off, please, by the 14th.
Before we move on to just that, I have another comment from Brookstone. It says cities are self-insured, so it's not coming from an insurance company in terms of the funding. And then it says taxpayers do not see the dollar-by-dollar expenditure of money towards paying off the lawsuits generated by police misconduct.
Right.
If they saw that, then they might become advocates against those kind of expenditures.
And in fact, that's right. Because as Joe taxpayer, I don't know, pay them off. You know, if I don't see it, if I don't feel it, that is true. And I mean, you know, it's and what I mean by the insurance company, you know, yes, cities are insured, but even still, the philosophy of insurance is hold on to that money, gain more money, pay the things off. You know, so but I mean, it's a tough subject matter. We can talk about it probably every time, every Friday. We'll probably have to talk about it. Because each week we're collecting videos of individuals who seem to be mistreated unfairly. And as long as it goes on, we got to talk about it. Just like elections, we have got to talk about them. We've got to get out and vote. Now, I think it's too late to register, of course. But if you've got a ballot, you got to fill it out and send it in. And you got to do it in two parts, you know. You hear a lot of the commercials talk about how if you don't vote no, then you're going to have an individual who's going to put us at risk health-wise because the guy believes in no mask and no vaccinations and things like this.
Now you're talking about Larry Elder?
Yes. And I hate the fact that they're already presuming and assuming that that's the choice. You know, notice, I mean, that he's the one. And I get it somehow because
again, they're using identity
race
politics.
Exactly.
What they are hopeful is that African Americans whose vote changed the outcome of those Georgia.
That's right.
Who changed the outcome, I believe, of voting in South Carolina. What they're hoping they can get African Americans to do is to just vote for the person because the person is the same race as you. And we are telling you, people, please look at the policies of Mr. Elder. Do not vote for him merely because he looks like you. Because he is for policies that would harm you. My understanding is this is the same man who said reparations, we need to pay the slave owners because they lost their property, or something very similar to that. There is one other, we'll talk more about the election, but there's one other issue that I want to address with our viewers, because even if you only can donate $5 or $10, I'm asking you to do it on behalf of this gentleman, Marvin Lewis Guy. You can look him up on the internet. He has been in jail for 7 years with no trial, awaiting prosecution. 7 years. His case involved officers coming into his home, using the no-knock warrant, the same thing that they did with Brianna, and he's asleep, his girlfriend's asleep, and somebody's breaking in his house. He doesn't know it's officers, and he fires off a shot. It has not, I don't believe, been proven that it is even his shot that actually killed the officer. It might have actually come from one of the other officers, because my understanding is there were a volley of bullets that then flew out. The officers then proceeded to brutally abuse him. The officer, and my understanding, I haven't seen these reports, but my understanding from there is a pastor who is advocating for him. There is a website, I believe it's marvinlewisguy.com or freemarvinlewisguy.com. And he needs people to donate for the defense of this African-American male. It is horrible that he has been pending trial this long. It is horrible that he was even arrested for this crime, because the officers caused this situation. If you break into my house when I'm sleeping, I don't know who you are. And if I have a gun, I am going to shoot to try and protect my family. So we need to bring attention to this poor man's situation, and we need to donate whatever you can. If it's only $5, if it's only $1, go to that website and donate that $1 to try and help this brother.
What's the website again?
It's marvinlewisguy.com, or it might be freemarvinlewisguy.com. There is also an 18-minute documentary that the pastor, along with Mr. Guy's approval, has done, and that is also available on the internet. You can Google it and find that. And this man is facing the death penalty because an officer died. They brutalized him, and my understanding is the officer put this in his report. He put a gun in Mr. Guy's mouth, breaking out his teeth. So this is a brother that needs our help. And like I said, no matter what, you may think, oh, well, I don't have a lot of money. Give whatever you have. We can't let them mistreat someone like this and not try to help that person.
Yes. And, this goes, the bigger theme is that we should always act on that behalf. We should always act for each other, and when each other is in need. But, back, can I just a little bit on the Larry Elder thing. Okay.
Yeah.
This, when you mentioned about reparations, that he was with Candace Owen, okay, on her show. And he was talking about the reparations for the slave owners, because at the time, slavery meant that their slaves are property. And if you took their property, they should be reimbursed. Okay. Now, I say I'm willing to agree with him on one thing, that if in fact we do that, and he's the guy who can pull that string and make it happen, then we, descendants of slaves, deserve reparations too. You see? So if you're gonna do it, I don't mind. You pay them, but you got to give us ours too.
You're on your own with that one, Lawman.
You got to give us ours too. That's all I'm saying.
No, because that means that I'm actually agreeing that we were property. We were human beings who were treated as property. You're not going to pay someone for having owned another human. So we on opposite sides on that.
Watch.
Elder, I'll wait till somebody else come along. I don't even want my check from you if it means that we have to pay the slave owners, because they've already more than benefited. Their generations after them have more than benefited from the blood of my ancestors.
All right. Now, Carm, you just said that I agreed. All right. Or that you're not going to agree with me because I may be agreeing with him. Okay. Now, I didn't say I agree. I said,
that's what I heard.
Here's what is happening. I am saying that I understand how politics work. I understand how the business works here in getting things done. And if this was a bill that was put forward then one of the things that I could put in that bill is, well, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this too to pass it. You see? So it's getting what we need. Because, and that's all I'm saying is let's get what we need by any means necessary. So if you're going to pay them, you pay us too.
No, that's one means I'm not willing to do. Because
well, they're never going to pay us then.
The money that they would pay us would then be minuscule in comparison to what they would pay them.
No.
I can't. That's not something I can.
It's in a bill. We would be in charge of putting it in a bill, which is how this stuff gets passed. Is people throw stuff in the bill. Well, if you're going to do this, you got to do that. And all I'm saying is he's being set up technically for that kind of action of, well, if you're going to propound that, dude, if you really believe that, then you have to pay us. And we will never agree with that expenditure on the top without the one on the bottom. And that's just how politics here works. So I want to get it done because I want it done in my lifetime. That's all. I mean, I'm being selfish from that respect, that I just want it done. And if that's how I get it.
It's done. So would you be satisfied if they said, Mr. State, we're going to give you 1 penny for your reparations? It is reparations, so you have gotten reparations, but the value is 1 penny. Would you consider that as having gotten reparations, or would you consider that as a sham?
Here's the problem. You'll never pass that bill then giving them a penny. You'll never pass it. And we'll wait for you to put us in there to the level that we want before we will move on it. But understand politics. And I want to talk about this some more now. Watch. Understand politics. People are always stuffing bills with things that apply to their home or personal to this person and that in order to get something passed. It is always that way. So,
well, let me ask you this. If it is always that way,
yeah.
Let me ask you this. What did the immigrants give for DACA? What did they give for DACA?
In the bill? Oh, no. I think the Republicans, I believe, got a lot to give up to be able to fund DACA. See, that was a give and take too. All of it is a give and take. We just don't hear about that secondary thing that happens. That's all. So you don't even have to tell people you're paying reparations to us. Just do it in order to get past something that you want. Now, I don't believe Lee really believes that or meant that. I think he was throwing it out just to be goddamn funny, just to, well, look at this. Almost Blue Lives Matter, all lives matter. I think he was doing that, you see? Really. But what he has stepped in and what I think we can hold him to is, well, if you're going to do that, if you really believe that, then you must take care of this end too. And then see what he says, you see? Because if he says, well, no, I don't want to do that, well, then of course, he's an ass and dismiss him, let him go his way, you see? But he was never serious. He was being flippant. He was trying to call us fools and shit like that, And that's where he gets exposed now. Is you're going to say some shit, silly stuff like that. You better back that shit up. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to talk about that more. I had an interesting talk on reparations, and I have some wild ideas about it and how it will work. And I was talking to some. At
our next show, I believe we will know whether or not Governor Newsom is still our governor.
That's right.
Or whether or not it's someone else.
That's right. And we can visit the topic.
Remind people what they need to do with their ballot. Don't just vote against the recall if that's how you feel. What else do they have to do?
They have to vote for a person if, in fact, it is recalled. So you got to pick somebody. So, and I mean, I'll tell you, look, I'm kind of not afraid of the recall in a way. I think that reasonable minds will all come together and say, okay, why should we throw our state into turmoil? I mean, why? Why would we do that right now when things are just at the edge?
You have to remember that there were were many people who signed that petition to even get that on the ballot.
True. And you know why? Because they thought, well, Gray Davis had happened, and hey, that's a fun thing to do, is kick a person out of office. I mean, I really think, it was cavalier. It was just, oh yeah, let's kick him out of office and stuff,
Yes. Let me. We've reached the end again of another hour with Courtside with Lawman
and Carmen B. By phone. But she's here. But we know she's here. Well, and I want to thank everyone for paying attention, being here tonight. I would say be safe, stay alive, come back next week. And I do want to address the reparations. I mean, I really, really think if people are going to, you know what I was saying, and I'll have to reveal it next time. And it just so happens Lee Elder appears. Funny. But that being said, stay safe, please vote. Hopefully we'll have our government intact next week. And we'll be ready to discuss any and all issues of criminal law, criminal procedure, the law, anything that goes down, especially stuff that recurs. Why do we talk about
people to hit the thumbs up in the chat?
Yeah. And to like us and do whatever you can to promote us. Tell your friends, come engage with us. Tell people who disagree with what we say, get on with us. I mean, I fear no comers. Why would we fear discussing things about our lives and everything? And because we are the ones who affect the change, right? Be the change you want to see, or get to the sidelines, right? So anyway, I think we got to end now, Carm. Thank you so much. See you next week. Same time, same channel. Okay.